Yeah, so a lot of people don't understand how family courts work and what the incentives are in family courts. People think of them as, an objective judge and this sort of thing. But the way that family courts are managed is they prevent you from presenting contrary evidence. That's why I've never been allowed to select a psychologist for my son. The courts will never allow me to do that. The courts pick the psychologist who will then present the evidence to the court, right? Now, fortunately, I've been able to record them. I've been able to gather evidence and actually prove that they perjured themselves, so they've had to throw out all this evidence. But it's taken a lot of work and it's cost me a lot of money to do that, right? And most people can't do that. So family courts basically work off of fabricated evidence. That's number one. Number two, there's really no appeal from family courts. So family courts, unlike normal, like civil courts or criminal courts, there's almost no appellate options out of a family court. So the judges operate with no oversight and just do whatever they want. And third, and this is the big one, there are massive federal programs that were instituted in the late 1970s that pay states trillions of dollars to tear families apart. So it's so innocuous when I tell you, be like, this is a great program. But like in Texas, we get 66 cents on the dollar put into the Texas Treasury for every dollar of child support that's paid. Right? So the state is now highly incentivized to issue the maximum amount of child support. That's why almost all divorces got 50-50 prior to the 1980s. And there was this skyrocketing of divorces where one parent loses custody. And that was to maximize Title IV-D reimbursements to the states. In Texas, it's $500 million to the Texas budget.
If the state is profiting off of child support?
Correct. And in most states, the Judicial Retirement Fund is funded from this money. So the more child support that's issued from the family courts, the larger the judicial retirement. It's a massive program. It's the size of the largest defense programs. So the incentives are absolutely huge.
To get people to pay child support?
Correct.
Even married people, to get them to break up and then have to pay each other child support?
Absolutely, yeah. So, because you would think the best child support would just be 50-50 custody and let people raise their kids. The best child support is to raise your own kid. That's the best child support. But they don't do that. Most states actually have laws prohibiting the courts from doing that. Texas has a family code in which it's assumed to be in the child's best interest that one parent get 24% of the time. And the reason 24% was chosen precisely is it maximizes Title IV-D reimbursement to the state at 24%. Okay?
How's the maximization function? How does it come out at 24%?
So it has to do with how the state calculates child support. So Texas has one of the worst child support systems in the state. It doesn't take into account the income of both parents, and it doesn't take into account the amount of time you spend with the child. So there are fathers out there with 49% of the time that are paying maximal child support still.
Wow.
But again, that maximizes the reimbursement to the state. I have a friend of mine, him and his wife came to an agreement to do 50-50 parenting, no child support, because he watches the kids a lot while she travels for her work. And so it all worked out, and they decided it's just better to do it this way. The state of Texas sent an attorney to argue in the case that they should not be allowed to do 50-50 custody. A huge kickback, yeah.
Wow.
An even more evil program that's related to this, Title IV-E. Title IV-E pays the states to adopt out orphans.
What do you mean adopt out orphans?
So
like
whenever CPS takes a child from someone and then adopts them into a good family, they get Title IV-E reimbursement funds, and it's a lot of money. It's like $50K per child.
The state gets that money?
Yes, it goes into the state budget.
And where does it come from?
Federal government.
Interesting.
Yep. So what'll happen in Texas is some satellite office of CPS will get low on budget, and they'll go and find a white baby under 2 years old, no medical problems, from working class parents who can't afford a lawyer, and then they take the child and adopt it out, and then they get $50,000 for their budget. That's how they do it. There's massive incentives to split up families in this country, and that's why you've had the explosion of divorce and rancor. So now you have the majority of children in America are being raised in fatherless homes. We passed 50%. This is the whole, you talk about this, you call it a conspiracy theorist, right? But they're blatant about it. They're absolutely blatant about it. But I think the agenda is not only population reduction, but also to reduce the political power of the middle class, right? If you've been to Europe, most of you have been to Europe. I've been to Asia a lot as well. Nobody cares about free speech there.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about rights there. There's one place in the world where people care about free speech and rights, and that's the American middle class.
Yep.
They have to disempower the American middle class to get rid of these things. And so the best way to do that is to take fathers out of the homes.